Good. They're coming on.
I know, notice. Okay.
6:30. Our time is 6:30. Stand for congratulations. One nation. Public participation. If there's anybody that wants to speak to P&Z, you can just sign up on a card back there.
If you're an applicant, we'll call you at that point. But if you're not an applicant, would you need a card filled out? I have not received any cards.
Did you want to speak to something else besides what's on the agenda? And you can speak at when the agenda item comes up, but we still need a card. Nobody came forward to speak on a non-agenda item. We need to. All the new commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Arment. If the newly reappointed commissioners, Commissioner Arment, White Stinovich, and Adams, if you could stand up and raise your right hand, we'll be doing the statement of elected / appointed officer and then your oath of office. And then once you do this, you can sign them and just pass them back to you before you do it. I state your names. Do solemnly swear. That I have not directly or indirectly paid. Offered, promised to pay. Contributed or promised to contribute. Any money or thing of value. Or promised any public office. Or employment for the giving. Or withholding of a vote. At the election at which I was elected.
Selected.
Or as a reward to secure my appointment. Or confirmation. Whichever the case may be. So help me God. Please continue standing. Now the oath of office. You have your right hand up, please. I state your name. Do solemnly swear. That I will faithfully execute the duties of the office. Of Bartonville Planning and Zoning Commissioner. For the town of Bartonville. And will to the best of my ability. Preserve. Protect. And defend the Constitution. And the laws of the United States. And of this state. And the ordinances of the town of Bartonville. So help me God. Thank you so much.
Well, all this is just those first two pages.
I will need those eventually, yes.
This is on to the appointment of officers.
Yes, sir. Thank you. At our annual meetings in October, it's time for each board and commission to nominate and appoint their new officers for the coming fiscal year. And in our code of ordinances, there's no person shall serve as a chair for more than two successive one-year terms. And that began in October of 2020. Chair McDonald has reached her second succession year. So we'll need to appoint a new chair and then also a vice chair.
So it's okay to switch.
It's okay if you want to switch. If there's anybody who wants to make a nomination, we'll take a nomination for chair first.
Were you not the year before? I thought Gloria just from.
No, she's been 2 years.
Or she has, okay.
So we'll take nominations for chair first.
Not necessarily.
There you go. You proud?
I say, motion.
All in favor? Thank you.
I'm the vice chair.
I did talk to Commissioner McDonald today, and if you wish to nominate her, she will accept the nomination.
I nominate Hillary McDonald for vice chair.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Unanimous. Approval of minutes, discuss and consider the approval of the August 7th, 2024 planning and zoning commission regular meeting minutes. Okay.
I didn't see anything. A motion to approve the minutes as is.
No, second motion.
All in favor? Unanimous. Public hearing on regular items. Discuss and make recommendations regarding a final plat for a 101.467 acre property situated in the Daniel Cook Survey, abstract 230, and A&M Delta Survey, abstract 1594, in the town of Martinville, Denton County, Texas. The property is located on the north side of East Jeter Road, approximately 2,185 feet east of the intersection of East Jeter Road and Country Court in Martinville, Texas. The application constitutes a revision of an approved final plat on project file number FP-2024-003. The applicant is Masosky, sorry if I messed that up, and Associates Inc. on behalf of Knight Development Group, town of Martinville, file number FP-2024-004. Staff, Ryan.
Yeah. All right, good evening, Commissioner. My name is Ryan Wells. I'm a consultant planner at Action Consulting. I will be giving the staff presentation on item G1. This is a revised final plat for Knight's Landing, town of Martinville, project number FP 2024-004. All right, so this is a final plat following up with the approval of the preliminary plat for a subdivision to create 15 residential lots. This is a revision of an approved final plat that was approved back in May of this year. The reason for the revision is that the applicant wishes to change Whiteton Way from being a public right of way to a private road that will be owned and maintained by the homeowners association. The lot sizes in this subdivision have not really changed. There were some minor adjustments to the lots, but the range of lot sizes continues to be between 6.003 to 8.381 acres in size. And so this plat would constitute containing a private street, public water line, because it serves multiple lots, and on-site sewer or septic service for all the parcels within the development. So again, this project, it constitutes 101.467 acres, located on the north side of East Jeter Road, approximately 2,185 feet east of its intersection with Country Court. And it consists of 4 original tracts subdivided into the 15 lots. So there are 4 approval criteria in the Martinville Development Ordinance that are evaluated when reviewing a final plat. First is whether the final plat conforms to the approved preliminary plat. In this case, it essentially matches the approved preliminary plat, other than, again, some very, very minor, to the degree of hundredths of an acre, very minor adjustments from the preliminary plat. There's a public water line easement as shown in the preliminary plat, and then it's proportionate to available services in that the proposed private road is sufficient to serve the 15 lots, and the on-site septic and water services are sufficient to serve the proposed subdivided lots. Second is that there's a complete engineering and construction plan for all required public improvements having been submitted. There were construction plans submitted for the original final plat, which are still under review by the town engineer. There's not much being changed with these Weiss Way being converted to a private road. So essentially, the only public improvement is that water line. And so that will have to be approved by the town engineer before everything gets finalized. Third is whether the plat conforms to the applicable zoning and other regulations. So this did go through a zoning change, I believe it was late last year, changing the zoning to RE5, residential estates 5. So there are 5 acre minimum lot sizes for this zoning district. As I said earlier, all lots are 6 acres or more, so you're exceeding that minimum lot size. And then all the lot width frontage to other dimensional standards for the RE5 zoning district are also being met with this proposed subdivision. Number 4 is related to the review and approval of on-site sewage facilities. There is a condition of approval being recommended by staff for this final plat that basically require a review of the subdivision by the registered sanitarian for the town of Martinville prior to filing of this plat for recordation. That is essentially to the benefit of the developer to ensure that all of the lots being created in this final plat are able to accommodate a septic system for any future residential development. So they don't end up with a lot that's undevelopable because there's a inability to accommodate the septic facility to serve a future residential development. So that is the condition of approval being proposed. So with that, having met all of the 4 approval criteria, staff are recommending approval of this final plat with conditions, which are as follows. So as I mentioned, first, prior to recordation of the final plat, this plat shall be reviewed and approved by the registered sanitarian. Essentially, the plat will be submitted to the sanitarian for preliminary review. It does not constitute an actual septic permit for any of the lots, but just ensuring that the conditions on the property are such that each plat can accommodate the tank and drainage field for a septic system. Number 2 is that the final plat shall not be recorded until either A, all required public improvements have been constructed, or B, there's an appropriate surety, generally in the form of a performance bond, having been accepted by the city. That just ensures that there's going to be a public water line built to the city's standards before you subdivide the lots and create new lots being served by that public infrastructure. Recommended condition 3 is that prior to recordation, there's a minor correction being made so that it states final plat. Right now, the signature box says preliminary plat, so that's just a typo correction. Condition 4 is that prior to recordation, the owner's dedication portion, which is the second page of the plat, needs to remove all references to the dedication of the street. So generally, when you have a public street, the dedication of that street to the municipality is done through that dedication statement on the backside of the plat. In this case, because there's no public dedication of the street, it's in private, we just want to remove that so there's no confusion in the future. And then, number 5, again, is just a typo cleanup where there's a reference to, different lots in one section of the plat that needs to be consistent with the title block of the plat, which references lot 1X, lots 1 through 7, block 1, and lots 1 through 8, block 2 of Knight's Landing. So that we're talking about the same lots on all the points of the plat. So again, just a minor correction to make sure that it's consistent and legally binding. Those are the recommended conditions of approval. That is my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Applicant,
Good evening, commissioners, town staff. Thanks for allowing me the time to speak to you guys today. I'm Manny Rios with Connor Consulting, 2904 Corporate Circle, Flower Mound, 75028. I'm here on behalf of the landowner. So this is a very minor change from the preliminary plat and the prior approved final plat. The majority of everything is relatively changed the same, with the exception of some lots. Didn't quite, we meet our minimum threshold of 6 acres. If you recall, the minimum was 5 acres, and we really wanted to provide that extra space, so we provided 6-acre lots instead of that 5. But the main reason, the biggest reason for the change was just really to make that road private, to make the property owners within the subdivision responsible for the maintenance and the repair and the future repairs for that road. So with that said, I open up to any questions, or if there are any. Thank you for your time.
what do we open ourselves up to? Do we have any in town, private roads down?
Don't believe so,
Well, country court, yes.
right now.
Are they required to build the roads to city standards? Can we,
Yeah, they would need to still build it to town standards, but they would have the long-term ownership and maintenance responsibilities.
okay,
There's no town meetings.
And I believe that the reason they wanted to make it private was also the ability to put a gate on the road. And so in doing so, they would have to, and I didn't put this in the condition of the plat, but just as a functional requirement, they would have to have a Knox box on that gate to make sure that emergency responders could get to the homes should they need to respond to a call.
do we need to put that as one of our conditions?
They functionally have to meet fire code, so they just have to do that.
So is there anything legally we have a problem with?
No,
Any questions?
no, I think you just answered what I was thinking.
Thank you for your time.
Does anybody want to speak to this item? Okay. A motion with the conditions.
I want to recommend, we accept this with the conditions previously stated, on our presentation.
I will say that. Okay.
All in favor? Item 2, conduct a public hearing to hear public comment, discuss and make recommendations regarding an ordinance amending the town of Waterville Code of Ordinances in chapter 8, section 8.02.001 B, exemptions, to add a new subpart 5 that would permit the discharge of blank cartridges from firearms on agricultural zone property with prior notice to the town marshal. Applicants are Stacy and Ronnie Smith, town of Martinville, file number ZC 2024-003.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to go into executive session under section 551.1071, the Texas Government Code for consultation with the town attorney.
Then at 6:50, we will convene to executive session.
Go. Hey, how are you?
Yes, yes. I'm sorry, oh, they, I think to review for the legal counsel and executive session, just to brief them, do you know which item two? Okay, thank you. Yeah. Of course, that's not, if that wasn't as important. You know, you still have to, saw that. Nice. That's fine. You know, your reaction and how you have it brought together, because you and I are sort of on the scheme of, we like to be in control. And when things are not in control. And I get paid about that. Right, but sometimes. But the people that pay really well are the people that don't hire people like me first, but then they need to try that. And because that is the missing. People. Let's see. And so it's not only expensive because they create unfortunate situations that are hard to control, but they also don't take the advice you do it. There's some work. Right. Right. And they can't see it. Yeah. Which drives me nuts. Just, and you know what's done, what you're telling. You know, what's funny is that last year, the station where they draw blood was very formal, like, the vet had her clothes on, we only had water there, and they had this little area kind of with the photo booths, you know, you see the things this year. They basically made it, okay. And they catch the ones that are coming out, right? And one of them, there was two different, when they came back, kind of the same area, but nobody was there. No gloves. I took a picture. You come back, I got the picture. There's no gloves, there's no anything. Which just like said that. No. Just like the same way. I heard what my brother said about that testing, right? Did I send you, I think I found this after we had been talking, I think it's recent. Let's say recent, like 2022. Actually, that was awesome. I kept. They came back. And all things improved it. And one, and then all the way, it was like, yeah, I don't know, it wasn't, it was hard, they guys, and they won, I was, they won, it was, and I was like, John's had that pen with some of his relatives, yeah. because you know, you do things like, you know, people are. American, things they do. So he was all aware of it. You know, that he said the thing that happens in some of these cases is also you see the association in the states because we're contaminating options. So even if they lose, they can sue. He says it's really, it's crazy. It's not so. I don't know about that per se. He didn't, okay, but he, I ended up talking to him on Saturday. Calling him late Saturday night for having trouble. No, I didn't realize you was. We had split her down. She was, Max was the one. Isn't that 20 mile an hour driving back and shot. She's out. And so I was working. Lawrence, this is about. Well, if I would like this happen. It was bad. Just as they were gates and when it was. Yeah, waiting for one. This is my kids. This is your business. You don't believe it's supporting. So. I work really as a voice for dogs. Yeah, I didn't want to get dogs. Yeah, yeah. But 100% of our kids that live at home, I'm not. They don't know. It's wasn't else. Because I'm up earlier, I'm changing the water, feeding, you know, just like. I make them on Holly and. Do you feed dog food or do you do that? I make all their food because the boxers said just did not do well. So, yeah, anyway, yeah, makes sense. John said, you know, he was really investing in just steaks and meat scraps. He said, he said, how do you get up like the vitamin stuff? I just mix that stuff in. It makes the vitamin like vitamin. I just mix it in there. John doesn't think I should cook it. He thinks I should just give it to him. Yeah. I'm not great at that. No, it's just, but I do, yeah, as the dogs got older, they don't like best. It's the dogs got older. So, when I started doing that, I had suggested that we just should see some brain rights or mentions in it takes the pictures. So funny you said that, I was just looking at. She's so shy to be in there. The one with her, as I explained, she's getting popular. Yeah. She wanted
Okay, time being 7 o'clock, I'm reconvening the planning and zoning commission into regular session. Staff, Ryan,
Okay. Commissioners, this is the second item on your, under your action items. And this is a proposed code amendment to the Bartonville Code of Ordinances related to discharge of firearms. Now, this does have a Bartonville project number that is ZC, which is generally assigned for zoning changes, but I just want to be very clear that this is not a proposed change to the zoning ordinance. Just because it's a code amendment, we just went ahead and assigned this as ZC number ZC 2024-003. So this proposed text amendment is to the Bartonville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 8, Section 8.02.001, subsection B, which is the exceptions section to the Article 8.02, which relates to weapons. And this proposed amendment is to add a new subpart 5 under the exceptions section that would prevent the discharge of blank cartridges from firearms on agricultural zone property with prior notice to the town marshal and police chief being interchangeable with relation to titles in the code. This was specifically requested by Stacy and Lonnie Smith for the applicants to this proposed amendment. So section 8.02.001 prohibits discharge of firearms within town limits. Subject to a number of exceptions, which are under subsection B. Those are or number one is whether it's if the discharge is from a licensed peace officer carrying out their legal duties. Two is if it's related to the theatrical, ceremonial, or military activities with prior notice to the town marshal. Three is if it's just like use of deadly force in the act of self-defense. And 4 is if it's in the ETJ or an area annexed after 9/1/81 with certain restrictions as to the type of firearms and whatnot. So that's what's in the code now. And this again would be a new number 5, which would state specifically upon prior notification to the town marshal, the use of blank cartridges is permitted but used for training or exhibition on agricultural zone properties in a manner not reasonably expected to cause a projectile to cross the boundary of the property. That's the language that was requested by the applicant, so that's what's for you tonight. We will have a recommendation on this item. That concludes my presentation.
applicant,
Thank you guys for hearing this. We live at 601 Macon Road, and we do a professional equine sport called mounted shooting, which is held with American Quarter Horse Association, American Paint Horse Association, Cowboy Mounted Shooting Association, and United States Mounted Shooting. And it's actually now held all over the world in France and other places. And we've actually been doing this for 7 years. We have had approval from both Denton County, from Bartonville, the previous chief of police, and Double Oak, because our property backs up to Double Oak residents. So before we ever started this, we made sure we got approval, and all of them were, hey, just let us know when you're gonna practice, and that's okay. Denton and Double Oak came back, I don't know, a year later and said, hey, please don't call us. We don't get any calls, but we continue to call. I believe it was Dow was his name, Chief Dow. Anyway, to let him know, but he has left. And so we continue to do it. And we believe with all the new people moving in, that it needs to be clear. And that is why we added number 5, just because the exception where it shows we can use blanks is for theatrical production. And, you know, we're not technically doing a theatrical production, we're just in training. We don't do it very often. I think one of our neighbors submitted a letter to Thad.
I will read that during the public hearing.
Okay, she lives right across the street. We've also done sound studies. I have, I have one of our friends that also rides with us and shoots. And Trayvon, and he has actually done the sound studies for us to make sure that we're staying within the sound ordinances for the decibels. So we've measured what we shoot to make sure we're within the limits, and we are. So we're just asking for a couple reasons to amend this ordinance to add number 5. For a couple reasons, to not put a lot of undue work for the town, you know, where the police officers are having to run out and what's going on. And to make it more clear for people that are new and coming, just to say, hey, this is just practice, this is what this is. We have gone around to new neighbors. We haven't caught the one on our south side yet, but the new neighbors over on the trifecta, the 2 that are living there, we've gone to talk to them, and they didn't have a problem with it. And then, of course, all the other neighbors that are close enough have been okay with it for the past 7 years that we've done it, so.
We'll close the public hearing.
Or you could open.
We need to open it.
Open the public hearing at 7:07. Anyone to speak forward?
Before we call the speakers up, I did receive an email, as she stated, and it was from Rachel Neese. She's at 1667 Broom Road, and her statement was, I am a resident of Bartonville at 1667 Broom Road, directly across the street from Ronnie and Stacy Smith's arena. I would like to submit in favor of changing the ordinance to allow them to practice their mounted shooting. It does not bother activities on my property or myself. The shooting happens very rarely, and honestly is one of the reasons I continue to love Bartonville. I always describe us as the Wild West of Dallas to people in the city. Please let me know if you have any questions. She is unable to attend the meeting tonight, and please submit this in favor of the change to the elected officials.
Okay,
And then the first speaker we have is Trayvon McNeely. You can come up and state your name and your address, please.
So again, my name is Austin McGill. Thank you guys for having me here today. I seem to speak in support of the Smiths. I've been shooting out with you guys I've been boarding with you for about 1.5 years now, I believe. I just started shooting with them. It's a way that I de-stress after a long day of work. I think this past weekend was my first time actually shooting out there. Actually, Stacey said I did the decibels for them just to test it out. And I did it from 150 meters and 150 feet and closer. Just make sure we was within the disorderly conduct, penal code 42.01, which states that anything over 85 decibels is disorderly conduct, which we was well underneath that every time that I shot and tested it out. I tested it out on the property as well as at my department. I'll say about 10 shots total. So I'm here if you guys have any questions on the legal side for banner.
I do. What's the difference between the, what they're shooting and a real shot?
So what we shoot is blanks.
Yeah.
So there's no projectile, it's the casing of a round that's crimped. Inside of it is the black powder. That's it, there's no projectile and that there's no beads, nothing.
What's the difference in the decibels?
So decibels is, when you're dealing with decibels, it's sound. Federally, 85 decibels is what we consider too loud, obnoxious, anything of that nature. So shooting these, at the highest I got it to be was 77. On the low end, it was 60, in the 60, low 60s. So that was just sound waves, how we perceive sound waves.
So is that just comparable to a regular bullet? I mean, most of us know what a gunshot is.
So it is.
Is it just comparable? Is that what you're saying?
So a regular bullet, this is probably not even 10%, 15% of what actual round sounds like. It's much quieter, much quieter. We could stand here, fire one off right now, and nobody would shock. It wouldn't be an issue.
Because I think that's gonna be the concern of anybody that has concerns.
Yeah.
how loud it is.
Yeah, we actually had a double oak officer come out and he enjoyed it and me and him discussed it. And he even agreed that it was well under. And I believe the conversation zone is about 55 decibels, 55 to 60 decibels. So we're still talking about around there.
I think we're just naive in that. I think we think of it as a gunshot and don't know what it sounds like, not having an actual round in it, so we're a little, yeah, just don't know. Okay,
Can I ask, just ask you, what are y'all training for?
What are you training for?
Yeah.
So it's it's a rodeo event. It's a rodeo event that we compete in. So again, I'm new to the sport. I just found it, fell in love with it. So we're shooting balloons at about 15 feet away. And it's just a competition. It's a speed competition.
It's actually more than just rodeo, but the quarter horse and paint and they all have those as well.
Say it one more time.
It's
Oh.
more than just a rodeo competition, the quarter horses.
Oh, yes, yes. So with that, Ms. Smith can speak more to the actual, she's been in a competition world a lot longer than I have.
I've got a video, that just, I don't know if I can put it up on here. That y'all could see it. Is there an Apple connection?
No, ma'am, you can just pass it around. So
Okay,
they can see what it is.
That's okay. I was just wondering if it was a
Okay.
police type thing or something else. I was just curious.
So it's not a police type thing. Again, honestly, I just found this as a way for me to relax after work and things of that nature. Riding horses in general, and then finding this new sport.
it's been around for about 25 years. CMSA and AQHA started it. And now it's grown. There was probably very few people, back then.
Ma'am, can you speak into the microphone, please?
I'm so sorry. The sport's been around for about 25 years. AQHA and CMSA, which is the Cowboy Mounted Shooting Association, started it. And then I'd say in the last 7 to 8 years, it's just really grown. Really grown. It's amazing. We're getting ready to actually leave tomorrow for World, and we go all the way through the 13th. So we have AQHA and CMSA World in Amarillo, and then APHA World is in Fort Worth. There at the Will Roger Coliseum. But no, it's big, and where he was talking about rodeo, a lot of the state fairs, so every stock show has the CMSA come and do a competition there. But if y'all want to see a video, I've got one if you want to pass it around.
I have some questions.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Number one, are you the only one in the area that does this?
I think, well, as far as do mounted shooting area, give me like what we're talking about.
Our area,
Martinville? Yes, ma'am.
Argyle,
There are people that live in Argyle that shoot, that compete, but they're not a barn.
are you looking at increasing the amount of time you do this?
No, it hasn't changed anything that we do. We don't shoot a lot of our riding is horsemanship, so when you take a horse to a competition and you run them, you don't wanna come home and shoot, you come home, we do a lot of slow exercises, we do a lot of dry fire, like he said, he's been with us 1.5 years. And this is the first time he's ever really shot, because we do a ton of just practicing slow work with horses, dry fire using, our dry fire meeting, just, there's nothing in it. So to answer your question, no, we're not looking to increase what we've been doing.
And I heard you say that you talked to the neighbors. Is there anything in writing from all your neighbors that says, other than from Rachel?
No, I was gonna get the Kennemers because they just didn't have an opportunity. But it is very easy to get that from them. And then I talked to both of the people living over at Trifecta. I don't know them well enough, so I felt, hey, can you sign off on, can you send something? But, verbally, they had no problem. Y'all could even reach out to them, Steve, that lives in the house back in the back, and then, Dr. Edmonds, that's a little bit closer. Both of them were In fact, Steve and his partner have lived in Martinville for a long time, they lived on Porter. And he's like, oh, you know, that's one reason we, besides running a smaller area, we like the rural, and he goes, we used to see y'all, you know, in passing.
So what is the frequency?
If I was to give an estimate, I would say, I'd say maybe like every other month. I was gonna give a frequency 4 times.
Probably most of the year, maybe every other month, but before nationals, before worlds, and before the stock show.
Yes, so we always get ready for Worlds, which is we're getting ready to leave too. And so we do that. Typically this weekend, we always get approved because it's longer than normal. There's several of us that are preparing for World. So we fly in a World professional. She comes in and works with us. So we shoot some on Saturday and some on Sunday. Typically, when we do shoot, it might be for 30 or 45 minutes. And remember, you're not shooting all the time, right? So you have like, you run through a round, it might be 13 seconds, and then you're not shooting for a little bit. You're working, you're reloading, you're, you know, doing stuff like that. So if I was to answer that correctly, right before Paint World in July, right before CMSA and AQHA World, in September. And then we don't really do much in November, December. January, we get ready for the Fort Worth Stock Show.
Stacy, just episodically for a couple hours, maybe every couple months.
Yeah, and yeah, at most, yeah.
I was aware that you did it because I've heard about it before. I just didn't know the frequency. And then I just felt about it, time we would change an ordinance for just one person.
Sure.
And all of those things were just, it was just surprising to me when I saw it.
Yeah,
Stacy, maybe I can speak to that.
she could speak to that. We weren't necessarily wanting to change the ordinance. We were just trying to make sure that it didn't, the way it was written, that it didn't cause us to not be able to use our property the way we've used it, you know? And to not create problems for the city. That was really our only purpose, nothing else. We have, anyway, I think you're better to speak on that than I am.
I have one quick question. During what time, like, is it early morning, afternoon, evening? What is the typical time period that you're doing that?
Yes, ma'am. If we do it, we've never gone past 6 or 7 in the evening. We've never started before 9 in the morning. We never do it all day except for this one clinic that I call it clinic, but where we're getting ready for World. Typically, if we do it, it's a Saturday, unless we happen to practice in July or August and it's so hot. But typically it's a Saturday, typically it'd be probably between 10 and noon. If we did an evening, we always made sure we were done by 7. And we always tried to do it like on a Friday, not on a weeknight. We wanted to be very respectful of anybody that had children, like Jamie, who lived across the street from us, they had 3 kids. Now they said they could never even hear it. Rachel says,
I can't hear it.
see, he lives across the street, he can't even hear
The
it,
only
right?
time I heard it, I was at neighbors on, just right on Brook Road, and again, so
Yeah.
you have to be outside and you have to listen.
Yeah, like you can be in my house on the property and you can't hear it, like if you
So
go
the
in there,
animals are not impacted by it.
No.
Horses are not impacted.
no,
So
Or
if
any
it's,
other animals.
so if it's 10 or 20% of a regular sound or less than that, but I've heard blanks that almost sound like a real life sound, right? So is there a certain kind of blank that is specified in some way? So it's not left open that a regular sound could be out there? Because I know that's an issue everybody's thinking.
so this is certified ammo by the Mounted Shooting Organization. And it is very different than probably other, I'm not a gun person, so I write this up.
I can assume you don't have to wear any type of hearing.
So like this weekend when we're shooting, I was not wearing earnecks at all.
Right, so that probably means it's pretty loud.
And while she was talking, I use the app that I use for work every day to check decibels. Her speaking was 64 decibels. So, again, that's about the sound volume.
Are you familiar with the 22 shell that has a stall low to it where it's going mine? No,
Are you talking like the ones that you use for, that you do the nail guns?
no, well, they may, but it doesn't have the amount of powder that normal 22. Not familiar with
No,
it.
no, sir.
Oh, it's quieter than the nail guns that the people around there are using. Well, this week, the 22 that I shot with this one, on 2 acres, you doesn't leave. You couldn't hear it outside too. Okay.
So that's what you just mentioned. So if you've heard the nail gun when you're driving nails with those 22s, those are louder than what we shoot.
Okay, the next,
Cynthia Stammer.
Great, thank you. So my name is Cynthia Stamer, and for your records, my address is 3948 Legacy Drive in Plano, Texas. I did not discover Bartonville until I had already moved to Plano, and what a disappointment. So maybe someday. I'm an attorney, and I'm here on behalf of Stacy and Ronnie Smith. They asked for my assistance in evaluating the current ordinances. They have recognized, because of some of the growth around them, we've gone through the process with the zoning changes that happened in the development next door. And they've been doing this for a long period of time, and they know that people moving into the area may have questions about it. I think it's helpful for those who've never seen it. I think about half of you probably have, but mounted shooting involves riding on a horse, and they put out 10 balloons, 5 of each color. One might be red and one might be white. And the pattern is, it's on a pole. The balloons are put on poles, and the riders are very highly skilled. And so it involves negotiating a pattern that changes every round and shooting these balloons with a single action revolver. That's basically an 1880s kind of revolver where you have to cock and pull and shoot at the balloons. And they're loaded with these sort of low black powder blanks. And they shoot, the goal of the black powder blank, what pops the balloon is not a projectile. When the impact happens, the gunpowder that's loaded in the blank explodes, and it creates a small burst of fire. And the skillful rider will try to shoot between, I think ideally 10 to 13 feet. Is that right, Stacy? And so this plume of fire, while they're driving along on their horse with one hand with this gun, has to hit the balloon and has to hit it with enough accuracy that the fire pops the balloon, but if they go too fast or they get too close, can blow the balloon and it can still miss. So what you're talking about is basically a distance of the projectile of the fire that would be y'all's desk at the best, at the longest distance. So it's not very loud. And so the first thing that we looked at with the ordinance was that it was interesting that your ordinance allows people to shoot things with a projectile that could have a louder sound based on the fact that they were just onto the property early enough. And the unique thing about the blanks is there is no projectile. So we assume that the purpose of this ordinance and the weapons ordinance is safety. So you've already authorized property owners to engage in shooting in a manner that's not safe as this is, because there's no possibility of a projectile crossing over the line onto another person's property because it doesn't have one. So from the standpoint of safety, it seems that would be equally or more appropriate than the current weapons. We thought that, and it's really just codifying the practice that the march has been using for all these years. They don't treat this as if it's a firearm because of the projectile. But they did think, and everybody agrees, that it's good to let the department know if they're going to be doing this at the time, simply so that if the dispatch or the town marshal gets calls about it, they don't have to dispatch someone, they know what's going on that property, so if somebody says, I hear some popping, they can be prepared without wasting resources, which can be what happens if people don't know. As to the sound, which would be the second question, we chose not to address that because you have a very clear and effective ordinance on sound, and this sport always stays within it. So rather than suggest that we clutter up the code, the safeguard or try to come up with some specification, this actually honors the standard and work that the council has already approved in this existing ordinance by saying, we're gonna abide by the existing rules, will always be below that level and an acceptable level of sound. So that was the thought process behind how we drafted the rule. And, you know, you could have a cap gun, a child could have a cap gun. And there's all sorts of other kinds of things like paintballs and other things like that that are not in the classical weapons sense that may or may not be covered. So it doesn't necessarily have the unique situation. It has a purpose that motivates us, this group here, to want to protect that and make it clear, because nobody wants a bunch of people getting upset. And then we have to go through this whole process of explanation, and the marshal gets involved, and really the resources of the town, you've got a lot on your plate, and Stacy and Ronnie Smith just felt that it would be better if we went ahead and cleaned it up. And that way they could, if somebody has a question, it'll be easy and clear, and everybody will know what the rules are, and they are totally comfortable that they're gonna also abide by the ordinances regarding the sounds. If I can answer any questions, I'm happy to do so.
I have another question for you. Are you looking at adding to the number of people that are participating in this?
No, we're not. We have limited, I work full-time, so we have limited, we do this as a hobby, we love it. My husband and daughter compete in it. I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
No, you're
I didn't
okay.
have it until she started.
So to answer your question, I would say we're considered a little more of a private barn. We love to help people. We helped, if I could have some people here that have been at our barn, there's some kids that have gone through, either not emotionally, back up, Will, who's Asperger's, you know, it just came from a barn that he didn't learn to ride well. And then being able to learn to ride and shoot and compete, I mean, it's amazing. So it's a hobby for us that we love helping these people. Our kids are like Trayvon had mentioned, it's his de-stress. I mean, it's a hangout. We're limited in our time in what we do. So to ask if we're going to be adding on more time that we're shooting, more people to our lesson program. Now, people move on, new person might come in, but as far as adding, that's not in our intentions.
How many people do you think you have doing it today?
I think you'd have to distinguish it, because when they shoot, there's a lot, like you said, a lot of lessons where they practice good horsemanship. And those, but there are also, and let me make first thing clear that Stacy and Ronnie Smith are not hosting events. There are people that do that, in which case you might have large numbers of people. It would be a large gathering if 10 people showed up for a practice. It's kind of like an oversized backyard barbecue. And it's a very positive social group as well. And as Stacy mentioned, there are a number of children that, young teens that come out and perhaps are going through challenges. It's a very welcoming environment. I know that Trayvon could talk about the training that happens in terms of responsible gun handling and ownership. There are very tight rules, both within the organizations and as a result in these situations. But your group in terms of practice is generally 10 or 12. You usually don't run horses entire days doing it either, so they're short periods of time. The one exception, like Stacy mentioned is this past weekend, she came to the council and got approval to host this annual training event where they do have several hours and they bring in a professional coach for 2 days to work with people. And again, how many people were there?
We had 8.
And that's probably typical, it becomes unwieldy. It would be more like a real event in those, in terms of a competition. So if you're gonna do that kind of training, those things happen at arenas where they are typically, arenas who are in the business of hosting events, and they're oftentimes held in conjunction with the competitions themselves. So these are very discrete, activities, and, they're typically gonna run maybe, when I watch 3 to 5 times or more without shooting anything. This ammunition with the black powder blanks is not inexpensive. They have to buy it from a special source, so you're gonna kind of practice a while the process and what they call, it's called dry shooting, where they just go through and practice both the runs and use their hands or to point the gun but don't shoot it. And then they might do 1 or 2 runs with active blanks to try to actually pop the balloons. Also popping the balloons is very labor intensive, because every time you do that, you have to have somebody blowing up 10 more balloons and running them out there. So there's a lot of dynamics to the practices and the sports themselves that confine both the size of the number of people, and within the number of people, how much shooting you actually do.
So, Stacey, you see this opening it up to other people if we add this to the.
No. Our intention was not to change the ordinance to open it up to other people. So understand, if leaving it the same way and we can continue to do what we do, that I can call the town marshal like I've been doing the last 7 years. The chief, sorry. I can call the chief like I was doing, and just saying, hey, we're gonna practice and here's what time we're gonna practice. That's really all we're doing, but we had a situation with a neighbor that actually violated legally what they were supposed to do, but before they sold their place and moved, had said, who have been okay with what we've been doing for 7 years, decided to say, hey, you're shooting a firearm, you need to go shut it down. Okay, and so that was the original start of, hey, we want to make sure that the way it's approved and what we're doing, that we can continue to do what we're doing. And it just brought up the point, as Cynthia and I were talking, that as new people come in, is it clear that this is training? It's really more the wording. So understand, we weren't here to necessarily just rewrite words and change it. We were trying to take the situation we had and knowing new people were moving in, and just trying to say, hey, if you read the ordinance, is it clear? Does it make sense that it's for training? It's not anything else.
So that never moved
Yes.
because of your shooting?
No. As they got older and didn't want to take care of the property.
Good, those are my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have to speak? For,
I have not received any more.
anybody to speak against? Then we'll close the public hearing at 7:34. Okay. Further discussion? Motion?
I'll motion to approve it.
Second. All good. Opposed? Bad opposed. What do we?
Commissioner Armin, I just want to make sure that we're clear that this is a recommendation to approve
Yes.
approval.
Yes, a recommendation, yes.
Thank you.
Anything? Do we need to add to the agenda? Then we're adjourned at 7:35.